Welcome back, folks. This is a Get a Grip on Life podcast. On today's show, I have Nilsson Gonsalves. Who's he? Well, he's an entrepreneur. You know I like to talk to entrepreneurs. And he is the founder of Culture Rising. Culture Rising is a cannabis accessory retail franchise operating in Ontario since 2006. So you bet he's interested in the new legislation, and he's kind of a subject matter expert on it. So if you're into the cannabis business, legalization, the technical sides of it, the ups, the downs, the pros, the cons, Nilsson is your guy. It's a good episode for you. This episode of the show is brought to you by Get a Grip Studios. Go to getagripstudios.com. That's right. I'm sitting in Get a Grip Studios right now. You want to start a podcast? Check us out. But for right now, before you do it, if you're listening, subscribe, write a review, share us out, do whatever you can. But for right now, Nilsson Gonsalves on the Get a Grip on Life show. Welcome to the Get a Grip on Life podcast, Nilsson.
Hi, thanks very much.
So you're an entrepreneur.
I guess so, yeah. It's been so long, I don't know if I can even
How
call
long?
it. It's been 13 years.
13 years.
I guess still counts.
Okay, yeah, no, who's, not like it, it's one of those things that time in is definitely very important. So have you always been an entrepreneur? Is there a time that you worked for somebody else?
There was. I've had jobs all along, actually. It's only been for the past, say, 5 years that I haven't had a side job. Actually, no. Honestly, in the summer sometimes I do construction just for fun, just to as a break to stop having to make all the choices. It's so nice to just be told what to do once in a while.
Okay.
So I'll just go do therapy construction work for a little bit.
Therapy construction work. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, I started when I was 20 years old, so pretty much my whole adult life I've been in this thing.
You've been working on it. Okay, so tell me a little bit about Culture Rising.
Culture Rising is a franchise of cannabis accessory stores, I guess we'll call them now. We've been operating in the suburbs pretty much entirely. I started it in 2006 in Streets Ville, fresh out of high school, really. We built up that location, and about 5 years later started franchising the model. Mm-hmm. First in Port Credit, then in Milton, then in London, Ontario, and then in Brampton.
So these are wholly owned stores by franchisees.
That's correct.
That you've put your business model into.
That's right, yeah.
Has it been successful for you?
It has, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no complaints.
What is the obviously there is a rise in cannabis culture, but it seems to me to be very competitive.
It is very competitive, and we're kind of overshadowed now by big money, new players coming in, and just venture capital that's just here to make a buck and step out.
Well, what are you here for? I mean, what's the difference between you and them?
Nothing.
You're just here to make a buck too.
Here to make a buck and be part of the community, I guess. Yeah.
You know what? I always question that. That vibe when people say to me, "Oh yeah, the big guys are here. They're just here to make a buck. They don't care about the industry." I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not trying to come across like that. Yeah.
It's like I think everybody's trying to make a buck. I mean,
for sure,
are you really that passionate about cannabis accessories?
Definitely, yeah.
Come on, man. Or are you just passionate about making money? Does it really matter?
I can't say I'm passionate about making money. That's for sure. I'd be better at that. No, it's a culture. It's a lifestyle. Oh shit, I'm not allowed to call it a lifestyle anymore. Actually,
why not?
New rules. You can't describe the product in any way that describes a lifestyle, positive or negative, or offers any.
Is that a law?
Yeah, the new cannabis regulations are pretty strict. I'm passionate about the interactions I get to have with my customers, which is also one of the pseudonyms for a marijuana shop in the past would have been a culture shop. Yeah, culture shop, head shop.
Right, a head shop, a culture shop. What's that guy on Queen Street? He's had his shop there for
Queen
years.
Street, you got Friendly
Stranger.
Yeah.
He's got a culture shop.
Yeah.
Is what he can't call it that anymore.
He can, but it's just the laws are punitive for any kind of promotional action that might be appealing to youth or convey a sense of a lifestyle choice that is better than
wouldn't that make
using
a huge swathe of the music industry illegal too? I mean, they're definitely
they've
promoting
got a provision for them.
Oh, do
for
they?
Art. Yeah, they can do that. You can still put bongs in movies, but I can't have a bong visible to youth. I've got to black out windows. And that's going to be a barrier, but it's not the end of the world. Our business model was kind of.
So we're gonna roll into my next question on that one, right? So the process of legalization, right? So I guess you're a legalize it guy. right? And you believe in marijuana legalization.
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to ask you, do you not think that maybe a period of decriminalization where things were sorted out would have been a logical, better step?
Absolutely. That's kind of what I think everyone would have expected, but no, they just went straight into the current model. It's not even a model of legalization. Only some weed is legal.
Right.
It's got to come from the right place and, be in the right packaging. I wouldn't consider it to be legalized. It's just their commercial product is, and everything else is actually more illegal.
Right. There's more laws around. There's more ways to get in trouble with cannabis now than ever, apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
Or in relation to it. And so, I'm a big proponent, for example, I'm a big proponent of the decriminalization of all drugs. Okay? Yeah. So all illegal substances people consume recreationally, because I think the punitive, arresting small users is a complete waste of time for the justice system.
Absolutely.
And it makes criminals out of people that are not not criminals,
yeah.
Right? And so a period I felt like that Canada as a country completely rushed into something that they have no idea what the unintended consequences of it are going to be.
Absolutely, that's exactly what they did. Meeting with municipal government recently. They're the last people to be informed of anything, as opposed to being something that came up.
But they're maybe the most important stakeholder as a government involved.
Everything falls on them. All the enforcement,
yes.
The policing, it's all up to them. And, they're the last to get a say in anything. And when I went in there to do a little consultation, I was bringing them up to speed on little details of the law that they hadn't been made.
This is Streets Ville or Mississauga.
Mississauga, yeah. Everybody's so out of the loop on so much stuff. I think there's challenges that people haven't even realized are going to be problems down the road. Like the whole aspect of it that you can't appeal to children. A lot of bongs, a lot of our focus is on glass that's artistically made. It's a boxing kangaroo, for example, or, some
sure.
sort of animal design. Is that appealing to children? It looks the way it is because it's beautiful. It's not doing that to appeal to children, but inevitably someone's going to point that finger.
It's not like you have a Dora the Explorer bong, do you? Do you know who that is?
Yeah, but that'd be a good idea.
Get your backpack. Let's go.
Yeah, there's been Ninja Turtles, Pokemon things, this is sculpted glass.
And some of these guys that are into smoking dope would probably be into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles too.
Exactly. That's our age group, really.
They're in their 30s. I mean, I know a lot of dorky guys out there that collect Spider-Man models and stuff like that in their 40s and 50s.
Exactly, yeah. It fits well within the niche.
Yeah, have fun with that, man.
Yeah, it's going to be challenging. That's not going to be my battle as much as it is the actual artists who make the stuff and who
sure.
are going to try and launch an industry based on the fact that we have legalized cannabis. They should have that opportunity to grow, but they might end up finding themselves in serious trouble with that.
So let me ask you. So with this, with your view as an entrepreneur
mm-hmm.
and someone that's familiar, somewhat than the average person with the laws, and has to then be in compliance. So you have a fiduciary duty or responsibility to have your stores in compliance with laws that inspectors don't really know that much about.
Correct.
Okay. So that's a tight spot.
Yeah.
So what would you, from your perspective, in terms of this process of legalization, what would you have recommended the government do instead? So you're on board with my decriminalization period, where you assess the situation.
Absolutely.
And the argument against decriminalization is always, but you're still not getting rid of the criminal element and the gangs and all that and all the violence that goes. Yeah, but we've had that since forever. So, if we keep it for a test period of 4 or 5 years while we figure out what the best solution is for all these regulations, because once laws are on the books, man, it's tough to get them off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a review.
So what would have been your sort of advice if you were sitting on a panel with the federal government saying, Justin, why don't we think about it this way? How would you have done it? Less
attention paid to the worrywarts and the fearmongers that think that cannabis is the gateway to ruin their children's lives. There's a misplaced emphasis on cannabis that's as if it's a danger to society, or if you have these pot shops opening, there's just going to be stoners lying in the streets or something like that. It's not the case, you know. This year, there's a really good meme out there. There's been 4 deaths attributed to romaine lettuce, 0 to cannabis, and that's after legalization. You know.
Yeah, but I think so. I think a lot of people have ruined their lives with marijuana for sure. People have ruined their lives with alcohol. Like, listen,
with all of them, yeah.
You're never going to get past me with, well, what about alcohol? That doesn't work with me, dude. I get it. You know what I mean? People wreck their lives with alcohol. There was a guy, I was listening to the radio this morning, guy doing 180, drunk as a skunk with his 7 and 4-year-old in the back seat.
It's brutal.
Right? That's alcohol right there. Right?
But I mean, it's
here's
little things.
No,
though.
but if people say to me, marijuana should be legal because alcohol is, that's a no-go zone. I don't buy that argument. And I do think that the use of alcohol and drugs does lead to other problems. But I would say that universally, most people that have consumed marijuana and have consumed alcohol would say that you're less likely to get involved with police if you've consumed marijuana than if you consume alcohol. Like, I would say that marijuana is not known to incent people to do violent crime or to get themselves into fights.
Okay, that's for sure. Yeah, no one ever smokes a joint and gets mad.
That's right. So what I think the argument always is an anecdotal one that goes back to the users of marijuana that say, look it, and this is a good argument, but I don't necessarily totally agree with it. And the argument is that, hey, people people go out and get drunk and they get into fights, they become rowdy and they get upset. And this is a known problem with alcohol. Like, some people react to alcohol that way. Yeah. Right? But they don't know. They know that, and anecdotally, most people know that people don't react to marijuana that way. But there are a lot of health risks to using marijuana.
Absolutely.
And some people respond in a way where it triggers mental illness. Other people respond in ways where it reduces their motivation. They know that marijuana affects the brains of people under 25 that have a less developed brain. So these are real issues.
Sure.
And, I'm not sure that, full-blown legalization right away was the right, and that would be my opinion. So the idea behind, pointing out the negative things of other instances is a de facto way to create a logical argument for cannabis legalization. I think people's fears are justified. I think they are. And I don't think the government handled it correctly, Nilsson.
But do you think the plain packaging is really keeping people
motivated?
Speak
it to the mic, yeah.
Is the plain packaging that we're using for weed really the make or break factor between someone developing a mental illness?
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so you want to speak right into that microphone, right. So when people are,
right.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, things like plain packaging and not being able to promote anything, or even the dialogues we can have in store regarding the product. Is that really the thing that's going to... I think that's protection by obscuring,
Yeah, interesting. That's a great point. Is a protection by obscuring. I think that people need more information, not less.
And unfortunately, they're turning to us every day. I get people. Let's say 4 out of 10 people that come through the store have questions about weed. That
for sure
we're providing because the government isn't and the LPs aren't. You want to know what the best part of my day is?
What's that?
Old ladies coming in to buy vaporizers. Teaching an old lady to use a vaporizer is the best part of my day, every day.
Okay.
And I can't do that anymore. We can't, under the new laws, we can't display vaporizers. We can't open a vaporizer package or show them the unit or really describe it in any way at all to help the user understand it. Which, for a senior citizen, that's kind of a complicated little device, as simple as it may be.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And as a brick and mortar retailer, the only thing I still had going for me was the customer service side.
Sure.
Which now I have nothing over Amazon.
Yeah,
because they can buy it cheaper there, and they'll get just as much information off there as they can in store, because they can't even see the product.
Huh.
When I say the big guys are taking over, it's little insidious ways like that. It's the $10,000 licensing fee. Per location, it's going to set you back at least $10,000 in licensing, plus training of the staff. It's no less than $15,000 just to cross that barrier. Then you got to build to spec. It requires a vault, which fair game. That's anticipated. There's still no credit available to us. Like, I've been with my bank for 13 years. I won't say which one because they'll drop me. because I went to apply for a loan when all this started coming together. Business plan and all. They couldn't even look at it. The lady I presented it to at the bank, fortunately, has known me for a long time, and she withdrew my application before submitting it because they would have closed my account right away because I'm in the cannabis industry. So unless you're really rich already, you're out, is the way it seems.
So it's interesting. So you've outlined a lot of points there. That's a lot of frustrations there. One, you've lost your edge as a retailer because of legalization.
Yeah.
Okay. Two, you've your customers have lost access to the training of how to use these devices in the safest, best way possible.
Correct.
So the consumer is lost.
Consumer has lost.
Three, you've lost access to capital.
Yeah.
Whereas the big players, they don't have any problems with access to capital. They have the Toronto Stock Exchange.
You got it.
Right? Whereas a small retail bank, you tell the guy I'm going into selling marijuana accessories. Yeah, sorry, son. That's, I'm not interested in that. Mm-hmm. So you've pointed out 4 different problems there, all of which I think are the opposite of what the goals of legalization should be.
Absolutely. There's 200 head shops operating in Ontario already. We're all small business. As a franchisor, I might be, a bigger player than some of them, but it's inaccessible to us even, it can't even operate in the same facilities we already have. Our properties are no good. We'd have to get new spaces, new leases.
There's no grandfather clause to come in?
No.
So your shop is illegal in Streets Ville now?
It's not illegal. We don't sell cannabis.
Ah, right. I see. Yeah.
It's just going to be a matter of being irrelevant down the road once there's licensed cannabis shops that also sell the accessories. And the people are eventually going to stop shopping at the one that doesn't sell the weed, right?
Okay. Not only that, though, but, it goes back to the fundamental argument. Do you remember when the LCBO started selling beer?
Might be before my time.
No, maybe 5 years ago.
Oh.
Maybe
when they stopped selling it in volume, yeah.
No, the LCBO started selling beer.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, maybe it was 10 or 15 years ago. I don't know, I don't remember. But I remember when they started doing, I thought, that's so stupid that you can't buy beer at the liquor store and you can't buy liquor at the beer store. But this is what happens when the government gets involved in things.
Yeah.
Right? You have, do you know what the LCBO stands for?
Liquor Control Board of Ontario.
Right. So you used to walk into an LCBO in the 50s or whatever, and you'd walk in, there'd be a counter there. There was no merchandising or marketing at all. And all the laws are meant to prevent people from drinking. Right? But it was legal. So you'd walk in, you'd get a brown paper bag, all your stuff would go in a brown paper bag, and you'd walk out and, you had these rules surrounding it. So the idea was to keep people from drinking alcohol. That was the mandate of the LCBO. Right? It sounds like there's a lot of that in the new legislation for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's hard to understand, really. I mean, I've been following it very closely, following the legislation, letter writing campaigns when it was in the Senate and stuff like that. We went so far as to, band together a bunch of head shops in Ontario. We're working together in a coalition up until about September or so, trying to, push for a little bit more leeway in the policy that they're structuring. Nobody from the cannabis industry per se was at the consultations that the federal government had when they were drafting the legislation. The Convenience Stores Association was not a single head shop, not a single wholesaler, not a single distributor or manufacturer of any kind of accessory related to it. But these, venture capitalists who've never smoked pot, they're at the tables.
And police officers who arrested a lot of people.
Yeah, they're
put them in jail.
They're making the rules,
Yeah.
And it makes sense that the policies would end up falling in a way that favors those big players because a lot of the policymakers are invested in those big players.
Yeah, what's come out on this show when I've talked to people about cannabis is that the entire way it's been sort of that it's gone forward has left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that the people that are most experienced with the use of cannabis by consumers are the least consulted.
Yeah.
That seems like it's not only it's illogical, but it's also insane too. At the same point, why would you do that?
it's the same people who wrote Dare and, taught us all about drugs when we were in elementary school. That just kind of gave a lot of us a laundry list of drugs to try. It was not effective at all. Whereas if you had actual drug users coming and talking to kids and being like, this is how I lost my teeth, that would have worked. And at the same time, whereas we exist in our communities, as positive, either a positive presence in those communities or, we've already been kicked out long ago. We exist and we serve as an example of, you don't have to be the stoner stereotype just because you smoke pot.
Well, so I live in Stouffville, and there's nothing I want to see less than head shops and tattoo parlors. I'll be honest with you, dude. Yeah. Like, there's nothing I want to see less as just a person who lives in Stouffville. Does that mean I don't think they should exist? Well, I mean, I think that people have a right to, to buy paraphernalia, especially if the stuff is legal, or like obviously head shops were never illegal. So I think people have a right to buy paraphernalia. I think also municipalities have a right to govern signage on stores and stuff like that.
Yeah, they do.
But I find there's nothing that brings a community down than head shops and tattoo parlors.
Why's that?
I don't know. It just feels like it's not as nice a community anymore. Yeah.
Do you feel that way about Shoppers Drug Mart?
No, I don't. No, but what I'm saying is I think that there are places they should be and shouldn't be, in one sense. But in another sense, if a store is available for rent and something's legal, either it's illegal or it isn't, and that's my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
Although I think that there could be some legislation with respect to signage, which I think that people could comply with. But all in all, I think though that the average not intending to use marijuana person out there in the world, that's their opinion.
Yeah,
is my opinion. Right? Yeah. There goes the neighborhood.
Right.
That's the vibe.
I'm sure that was the vibe in Streets Ville when I opened too.
Sure. I mean, but at the end of the day, societies change, and I think what's happened to the industry and to everyone in Canada is that they just got slapped with this. And, the fact that you guys weren't at the table negotiating, or not negotiating, or even putting your input, not even allowed to negotiate, just putting your input forward.
Yeah.
And that, a lot of people are now in the same situation. So there's a whole bunch of, there's a host of different interests that I don't think were handled well that as a country and that we could have done a lot better with.
So how do you feel about has Stouffville approved or declined?
I'm not aware of the particular laws. I was just giving you my approval on that, right? Yeah. But it seems like almost every single main street in downtown of a small town will have a head shop and a tattoo parlor now.
No doubt.
I don't know if I know that Uxbridge has a tattoo parlor, but I don't know if it has a head shop. But I'm sure it does. It's not even the cannabis use. It's also vaping, like non-cannabis vaping is very, very popular as well.
Yeah, it's popular.
And those two things kind of go together. You see those the paraphernalia that goes with that also goes with this. But I'm mixed. I have mixed opinions on it. As you can see. But
conflicted even because legalizing all drugs but not wanting head
not
shops.
Legalizing drugs.
Decriminalizing
all drugs. Because I don't think the users of drugs are criminals, right? But I do think that over time, I think that a process of with decriminalization, with steps towards legalization, would have been a lot better for every stakeholder in it, you included.
Yeah.
Right. So a process where in the next 12 months, we're accepting advice from various stakeholders in the industry, where your 200 head shops could put forward a proposal and that be heard, right? It seemed like the whole thing was rushed so fast by people and interests that were far more powerful than yours.
No doubt.
And both the people that were skeptical about it and those who were initially enthusiastic about it were left out.
Yeah.
Right? So you have those two groups, right? I don't represent either side. I just know what most people, non-cannabis user, and even in fact some cannabis users, I'll be honest with you, are put off by head shops in small towns, for sure. Now, Queen Street's a different story. Does that mean that they shouldn't be there, Nilsson? That's a different conversation.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean?
Not exactly, no. To be honest, I don't.
I know, you're looking skeptical. So, because I think that head shops and tattoo parlors make a community look like a there goes the neighborhood attitude to it. I can't describe the word I'm looking for.
And what is it that's being lost? You know,
the innocence of the neighborhood, I would say. That's what it is. It's like a nice shop with a butcher shop and a this, and then now there's a tattoo parlor and thing. And I'm not being critical. But that doesn't mean that those businesses shouldn't be allowed to exist.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those are two different questions.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that neither the stakeholders on the industry side, which is you, nor the stakeholders on the community side were really, other than having to black out your windows and get rid of you, that was the answer.
Yeah, for sure. I'm
right?
sure I'm sure the plain packaging weed stores will be a lot less of a smite to their towns.
And I think the increase, I think the increase of the loss of industry or paraphernalia knowledge is a real bad thing for people. I think what you're saying is correct. I think people do need instruction. They do need people that know how to use these things correctly.
There is better ways to smoke pot than to roll joints. You know? You can buy the pre-roll joints, but a vaporizer has a learning curve, and it's just there's too many options to just pick one out of an unmarked box. And
off Amazon.
How am I going to expect someone to pay $300 for a product that they can't see, that I can't explain or describe or even try and sell, in the sense of this one over that one.
Yes.
It's bizarre. Argue without a doubt, anything's better than smoking a joint as far as your health's concerned. A water pipe has a little bit of filtration there. A vaporizer has no smoke. But if you can't display these things, it's just a really weird spot right now.
So you can't display them. You can't talk about them.
Presumably, yeah. And I've got to pay for a $40,000 compliance check before I know for sure whether I can even have these things on display. But that's the way it looks. That's the quote I got: $40,000 for a gap check to see how far to get myself in compliance. That's per location.
What's GAP stand for?
Just like the gap between you and you in a compliance state.
Oh, I see.
That's what they call it, gap analysis. Yeah.
So what your gap is, eh?
Yeah. That's it's a pricey fee. So as an existing business owner, you're kind of screwed because you're either going to have to liquidate all your product and start from scratch in that space, or risk one thing throwing off your application and then you can't apply again for 2 years. So you're out $10,000. You missed your spot, in the first stores to open, and you got to wait.
Plus, you have leases at these stores.
Yeah. Exactly.
You could have a 3 years left on your lease or 2 years left on your lease.
Yeah,
that you probably personally guaranteed.
Yeah, it's a good spot if you're a property owner, which
I don't think they want vacant property. Most property owners don't want their tenants hurting. They want their tenants thriving so they can raise rents.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think anyone's in a good spot.
Yeah,
except for some special interest groups.
Yeah. It's just yeah.
So, we had our little talk about how the small town thing, but I see that you served as the director of marketing and promotions.
Yep. I served
for the Streets Ville BIA. Are you still on that?
Yes, I am.
On the business improvement area?
Yeah. I just got promoted to that.
Okay. And so how is your involvement in this along with the new laws and all that? How does that affected that role? And what are the BIAs looking for?
Fortunately, it doesn't affect that role at all. I have never been in a position where I could advertise myself in a small community like that. I'm not going to rent billboards. That's going to just draw negative attention.
Sure.
It's a great experience, but I'm selling the community rather than any individual business. And so I basically just keep my own business out of it completely and try and serve, my neighbors.
Okay.
To the best of my ability. It felt very validating being invited onto that board, after, they tolerated me at first. And then, I felt very much embraced by them when they invited me to join. It was a minor role. My first year was just promotions. I helped put on, one of the events, and someone stepped down, and I got to assume the marketing role, which is very exciting, but completely detached from my business. It's really great getting to go represent the BIA to these consultations. My MPP had a round table a while back, so it was really helpful to get to go speak on behalf of the BIA and my business.
Did you speak to the MPP about legalization?
Yes. Nina Tangri is our MPP out in Streets Ville, and she's been very, very helpful.
Liberal or conservative? Or
conservative.
NDP?
Yeah. Every meeting I have with a conservative MP or MPP starts kind of the same way with a disclaimer, like, I really don't approve of this. I wish this wasn't happening, but you're my constituent. How can I help?
Yeah. So how do we?
Yeah.
It's interesting. That's interesting.
Amazingly helpful, though. I mean, I've bucked this lady about 3 or 4 times in her office since she took it, and every time she gives me more than the half hour, allotment, just to really make sure she's got all the information and I've got everything I need. I've been bugging her since she came into office to try and find out how to comply.
You're probably helping her as much as she's helping you, to be honest with you.
Well, she ended up being the chair of the committee overseeing the Ontario Cannabis licensing bill.
Sure.
So, yeah, I think possibly she ended up in that role because of all the questions I kept asking her and her having to be involved in that.
I bet.
So a lot of the protections that I asked for, they came in. I was really worried that we were going to get overrun by LPs, the licensed producers opening up their own stores. And that'd be pretty tricky because they grow their product, right? If they're selling accessories at the same time, they don't even need to mark them up. They could sell the accessories at a loss just to sell their cannabis, and we'd all be gone in, a few years. So I was pretty concerned about that, and she had our backs with that. They put that rule in that LPs can only have one retailer attached to their production facility.
One retail store.
One retail store for the LPs. Huh. So I pissed off a bunch of LPs.
I bet you did. Yeah. You see, it's interesting how when that you found a way to have a voice.
Yeah, it's amazing that they gave us a voice. That was
no, you didn't get. They didn't give you a voice. You kicked the friggin' door down, man. Good for you.
Thanks.
That's good that you did that.
The coalition did a lot of good work too. In the deputations. That's mostly fizzled now as parties go different directions, and some members have been acquired by larger players, so they're not in the fight quite the same way they used to be. And
let me ask you a question, okay, about marijuana as well. Before this whole legalization thing started, and you heard about these stocks and how much marijuana they can grow, and then Matt was showing me a tweet by another guest on this show where they showed a field of indoor cannabis, and it was an enormous facility. Okay, everyone I know that wanted to smoke dope had all the dope they wanted to smoke.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what's happening is people are wondering here if there's going to be like is there going to be that much of an increase in recreational usage?
No. The people buying cannabis legally are probably going to be consuming a very small amount. I think they're anticipating the average Canadian to smoke, about an eighth of an ounce a year.
Which means that some people are smoking a lot and some people aren't smoking anything.
Exactly. And I know with pretty much, with the relative amount of confidence that most of my customers aren't buying that cannabis. They bought it once, and they probably bought the same thing I did. It was ditchweed and fancy packaging. It all smelled the same. It's not cured. It's irradiated.
So there's still a lot of black market dope out there.
I imagine so. I don't think that's going to go away because they didn't even get a good product out. It took a week and a half to get, and every container.
You can't score it on a Friday night.
Right. Yeah, no, and the product is bad. Like, it's pretty bad.
So there's only one product they sell?
It may as well be. They all smell the same.
Okay.
So Health Canada doesn't allow the LPs to cure the weed. That's a bit of a problem. So as soon as the weed is dry enough to be, smoked, it's got to go in the vault. Once it goes in the vault, it can't come out of the vault. And it just sits there, and that's not how you cure weed. Weed has to go into an airtight container and be vented once or twice a day. You burp your jars or something like that. They can't do that because that vault is, it's a room within a room with a 4-foot gap in the middle.
Sure.
It's not meant to be accessed, and policy doesn't allow it to be accessed. So you're getting the weed freshly cut off the after drying without any of the processing done that brings out the flavor, the smell. So you open 3 jars of 3 completely
All right.
different
So what about the
strains,
argument?
same.
What about the argument that you're getting safer weed?
You're not. You're getting irradiated weed that isn't cured properly. The curing is one of the biggest parts in ensuring there isn't mold.
Okay.
They irradiate instead. That can't be better.
I don't even know what that is. What is irradiate? They put it under like a special light that kills the stuff or whatever?
Yeah. When astronauts take food into space, it's irradiated.
Okay.
Special circumstances, justifiable there.
Sure.
Irradiating all the weed that goes out. Just
Don't irradiate my weed, bro. So you think there's going to be a thriving black market for a while?
Until they get it right, yeah. Until smaller players make it into the production game and actually make the sacrifices of putting, machinery in the vault that can burp it and, ventilate it properly. It's just no one's done that yet because they've been stockpiling for the recreational market and just they're not going to sacrifice the space to put the equipment in.
I don't know. It sounds crazy to me, but I think there's going to be a crash in all these marijuana stocks. I don't think people are going to smoke that much dope.
Hasn't it already happened?
I think there's going to be like a total bloodbath.
I agree completely, yeah. There's only...
I don't see that, from people when they talk to me, it's like, oh, yeah, they're going to legalize marijuana. I don't see the average person who not really into smoking dope all of a sudden starting to do it because it's legal now. I think everyone already had the opportunity to smoke dope and get into it and do whatever they wanted to do when they were younger anyway, and they either chose to do it or not. And there's lifelong users that have used marijuana for their whole lives, and God bless them, whatever. And now it's legal, so all those people that didn't make that choice are going to make that choice. No, I don't think so, man. I don't know.
The only hope to me is the export market. That's a new development, is that we can now export it. So that's promising. That could open up a whole lot of new business for Canada. But as for the number of Canadians, and the amount of investment in the cannabis industry, it just doesn't make sense if it's only to feed our market.
The talk of export, actually, now that you mentioned, I've heard that a couple times, but now that you bring it up, it's like the talk of export is actually indicative of overproduction.
Yet the OCS is out of product. Yeah, weird, eh?
There's got to be so much weed out there, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much investment in it, dude. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. But I mean, it's getting a lot of that investment's getting eaten up in things like $40,000 compliance checks because the laws are so dense. It's in purpose-built facilities because your existing stores don't make the cut.
Yeah.
If it's going to be legal, why not let it be in convenience stores, liquor stores, supermarkets? It's an extension of the produce section, in my opinion. It's that.
I'm a big believer.
Spicy lettuce.
I mean, I'm a big believer that something should either be legal, decriminalized, or legal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Right. So decriminalized meaning that, you can't sell marijuana, or you can't sell. You're not allowed to be a purveyor, like a wholesale purveyor of this. But if you have less than this amount, then you're not a criminal. And we don't bother with you. I'm a big believer in that. That teaches people, how the actual market works, who consumes it, who doesn't, and you don't put people in jail. But the idea of this legalization with all these rules it seems very punitive on people that are already in the business, like business of accessories. It also seems like there's some. Anyway, I've already said this on the show today, but I just feel like it wasn't done right, man.
Yeah, I really feel like the model of alcohol is what they should have followed. It is that kind of recreational drug, and
I think the model of alcohol is totally flawed, dude.
It is the way we do it in Ontario for sure, but why not?
Why
reinvent the wheel?
How old are you?
I'm 33.
I'm 41. Everyone I know bought alcohol at the beer store or the liquor store when they were not allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody I know.
Yeah, so did I.
Okay, so everybody I know had a fake ID or some way of getting let me borrow your license, all right? Everyone I know, okay, that I actually have ever had a conversation with this has a story about when they used a fake ID to go to the LCBO. Okay, so this idea that the government stores somehow protect minors is completely ridiculous. I think it's the private sellers are in a worse predicament. So, for example, if you sell cigarettes to an underage person, you get a fine.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants you don't want a $10,000 fine.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to be in compliance.
Exactly.
And you're going to make your employees in compliance.
Yeah.
right? Whereas at the LCBO, you got people that are unionized workers that can't be fired anyway.
You want to know what the fine is if I sell cannabis to a minor?
What's that?
$250,000 first offense. $500,000 every subsequent offense.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to do that anytime soon.
Yeah, but if you sell a 26er to a teenager of any booze and they drink the whole thing, there's a good chance they'll die of alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, there's a chance that they will. Yeah.
There's a good chance that they'll black out, and who knows what will happen to them.
Sure.
That joint is not going to have a fraction of the negative impact on their lives.
Sure.
Yet there's no warning labels on the booze. The conversation would have just been more productive if it was put on the same level as alcohol.
You're talking about cultural mores there that you can't overcome, right? So there's cultural situations. The booze is accepted by our society and as a general rule across the board, except while driving, and marijuana isn't. But let me ask you to maybe change gears a little bit here.
All right.
You put in here private equity investment. Did we discuss that already, or is there something else that you want to talk about private equity in relation to your biography? Is it because you're negative about it, or have you looked to private equity to get money for your business?
No, private equities look to me on occasion. Okay. There's been a couple of lowball offers from some of these new players. They're just looking to score property, really. It's nothing that really needs to be discussed there, though.
Okay. What's the corporatization of cannabis? What do you mean by that?
I guess that's what we've been talking about this whole time.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's all of the existing players that made people comfortable with it, gone. Justin Trudeau might have legalized cannabis, but it's the head shops that made the general public okay with that even being a thing. And now,
you ever heard of a cascade effect?
Not in this context.
So a cascade effect is a known psychological phenomenon that happens to humans. So the more you talk about something, whether it's negative or positive, the more likely it is to come through.
Yeah.
Right? So whether you talk I think I remember seeing my first Legalize It shirt maybe in the mid-90s. And no one would really talk about it. Be like, oh, who's that Drew Getz there, shitbird? Who wants to legalize marijuana? Get a grip, buddy. But then as the talking about it, so whether people are saying negative things or positive, actually Donald Trump wrote a cascade effect to the White House. Okay. Perfect example.
Gotcha.
Cascade effect. You talk about me. Whatever you say doesn't matter. The more you talk about me, whether negative or positive, the more people see my name, the more likely that outcome is to be manifested.
Yeah.
And there's a multitude of examples you can put on this, and it seems like all of a sudden everything will switch. That's the end of a cascade effect. Is when, whether it's negative or positive, the change happens. Boom, and then people have to deal with it. That's a cascade effect.
Okay.
Marijuana legalization definitely rode the cascade effect. Absolutely, for sure. And there's a bunch of examples of that. But what was I? I was going to make a point with that. Can't remember now. Lost my train of thought here on my own show, Matt. What's going on? So the cascade effect, corporatization. I don't know. The political system, the role the role myself and others have taken in guiding policy. We talked about that. Okay. Overcoming your own significance. I wrote a circle around that. What is that about, man?
Man, I don't even remember.
How to overcome your own insignificance.
Oh, well, I guess that would be in the context of just all that political action that us little players were able to do.
So it's in reference to the business.
When
I don't think you're insignificant.
When I filled out that bio,
yeah,
the fee schedule of licensing hadn't come out yet, and all that we had so far was just our little victory that the LPs weren't going to overrun us.
Okay.
So there's a certain optimism when I filled out that bio that is clearly gone.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about this. How to get far with very little.
Well, that's fun. That's basically what I've been doing this whole time.
Entrepreneurial spirit.
Well, yeah, this is the story of so many head shops. I built my first store with a $10,000 car loan. No one would give me a business loan, but you can get a car loan if you got a job. Started like that. Had 3 jobs. Ran the store. That's doing a lot with very little. I literally went from furniture that I found in the garbage to a business model that people wanted to copy and pay me to copy. That's basically where I come from, the nothing that is the suburbs into trying to build something bigger than myself. And just to find out, something even bigger is just going to step on you. But it's fine. It's fine. There's going to be other routes.
I'm pulling for you, man.
I'm pulling for me too. It's
yeah,
cool.
dude, I like you. I want to see you succeed. I just feel like you're. It's the elephant and the mouse. You're up against a big dragon.
There's good days and bad days. There's optimistic days, and then days of resignation.
So what's really gone wrong with the world here? You put that in here. What's gone wrong with the world, man?
With the world?
That's what you wrote.
Man, I must have been baked.
Big surprise, folks.
Right? What's gone wrong with the world? Well, with that, here's an example. Shoppers Drug Mart is now... So there's all these rules, and the OCS is supposed to be the only one authorized to sell online. All of a sudden, Shoppers Drug Mart's allowed to sell online. And
is it because they're a pharmacy?
Yeah, but that's what's weird about it, because how many people die of opiates every day?
Yeah,
and that shit comes from the pharmacies. So why are they viewed as the responsible party? The ones that they're going to bend the rules for, whereas like the head shops that have been self-governing.
Well, now, are they selling...
this whole time.
So just to ask you, are they selling medicinal product, or is it actually recreational use product they're talking about? Like, do you have to walk in there with a prescription?
I believe it's a medicinal. They're selling the medicinal weed.
Okay.
But, meanwhile, we can't sell CBD, for example, which is harmless and not psychoactive at all, but every head shop that carried it just had to stop after legalization. If they're still carrying it, they're at risk of not ever getting licensed to sell cannabis. We're over-governing some things and then just letting other things
CBD
slide.
oil is like vitamin C or codfish liver oil, as far as I know.
Yeah.
It's like, or what is that stuff they use for joint pain? People use that, whatever.
Yeah, like Tiger Balm and stuff like that.
That's what CBD oil is.
It works at least as well as Tiger Balm. Those topicals.
Yeah, it
which
cures
aren't even legal now.
It's an inflammation thing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I've read a lot about
a
CBD
topical inflammation medicine is illegal and, grounds for complete disqualification for cannabis licensing. If you sell it now. But, Tiger Bomb's okay, and opiates are okay, and
Well, the whole opiate, the whole pharmaceutical drug question. Again, I don't like negatives used to create the reason why, right?
But everything about cannabis legalization is a negative thing. Like every rule is deliberately meant to suppress and to keep people in the dark about it possibly not being the worst thing in the world. If it's meant to demonize. The entire structure and all of the rhetoric around it is one of suppression. It's reluctant and it's judgmental in a way that's disproportionate to things that are just okay otherwise.
So yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. Actually, what you're saying is that we'll allow you to have your fix, addict. Is kind of the approach.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's going to come in a white box. And there's going to be, you can have all the fun you want as long as you do it in your bedroom by yourself. Mm-hmm. You sick bastard.
Yes. There's
like that. There's an attitude of that in it.
Yeah.
I see that totally.
There's a scowl in everything they say.
A sneer, yes. Sneer. Yes. I get what you're saying. And Shoppers Drug Mart's responsible enough to handle you addicts.
Right.
Because they're pharmacists and they know all about this. Come on, most pharmacists don't know shit about marijuana, buddy. I mean, maybe there's some pharmacists out there that are great, but I mean that's not the. So yeah, it's interesting that it's almost like what's your group of 200 stores called? Do you have a name?
It was the Cannabis Coalition.
Okay, the Cannabis. It's like the Cannabis Coalition should come up with a online course, okay, for their store employees, which gives an accreditation. Like a literal, because the lighting industry has these. There's all kinds of them. I'm in the lighting business, as you know. So there's all sorts of industry accreditations, and they actually have a lot of power. To be honest with you.
Really?
Yes, and it's like you could have Cannabis Culture Shop employee 1 and 2 and 3, and you could throw it back in people's faces, like, the same way. It's like, no, our people know more because of this accreditation. They go through this training, and this is what happens. And you and like 10 other guys that have been in the game for a long time could put together like a 10-hour course and give them a little pin and a certification.
That was actually one of our goals until the Alcohol and Gaming Commission took over. We were lobbying to be put in that role where we get to at least have a hand in designing the course. Because every employee has to receive a smart serve type training to work in one of these cannabis stores.
Yeah, but you guys should do it anyway.
You should do it
on
the side.
Yes, do it but it's do it and just leave the word cannabis out of it 100%. Look at it so that all it is you're talking about the paraphernalia involved in it, and just come up with one that's in compliance and stick it to them, and then say all of our employees are also trained on top of this, because there's something to industry training, and a lot of people, like for example, you could be an electrical engineer. Okay, you could come out of whatever with the highest marks in electrical engineering, but you don't know shit about lighting. There's no lighting engineers. There's no lighting engineer college or anything like that. There's the Illuminating Engineering Society, and they grant industry accreditation. That's what they grant. And if you you could be like the first one to offer it.
So it's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, I'm just because I totally get the paradox that you find yourself in, where it's like, I know, and my employees and the other guys that do what I do and gals that do what I do know way more about helping people keep them safe and using the product correctly, and knowing where the line is, and how to consume this in a way that is not that it's fun and exciting but not damaging and whatever, and hey, I don't want to smoke, what can I do, and than anybody that's at Shoppers Drug Mart.
Yeah, exactly. Our role in harm reduction has been eliminated.
Yes.
Which I think that was a valuable part,
Yeah.
There wasn't always bong shops, and people would smoke weed out of anything. They didn't have to when there was access to, nice clean glass you can smoke your pot in.
Sure. And how to maintain that thing and
how
keep
to
it
maintain
clean.
it, yeah.
Sure.
That's gone. We've always had a good relationship with the region of Peel, their health department. They put condoms and stuff like that in our stores.
Because everyone that gets stoned has sex.
I guess so. Maybe that's why they're doing it. Yeah. No more condoms, and then you make weed legal, so our population stops declining.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Oh man, that's funny. So okay, let me ask you about another subject here.
All right.
Okay, edibles.
Edibles.
So edibles are not legal.
Not at all. You can make your own, but you're not allowed to buy them. They haven't even started that discussion. They were saying next year, a year after legalization in retail is implemented and running, they'll start doing that.
So I find that edibles are a completely different thing than smoking a joint.
I agree. Yeah, it's way more intense.
Yeah.
And also way more enjoyable.
You can actually kind of overdose on edibles.
You can, yeah.
You can't really overdose on smoking pot in a way.
Yeah, you
not to the same extent or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, you can have a way worse experience by eating too many edibles, for sure. And there are rights to be a little more cautious with that, but I mean, keeping it illegal is kind of bizarre as well. There's challenges to overcome. Like, yeah, everything's presented in a kid-friendly way. I guess the gummies, the brownies, it's all very stereotypical.
The kid could smash a whole bag of edibles and who knows what happens.
Yeah, who knows what happens. Yeah, he's going to have a bad time for sure. I think that's going to end up being the biggest cultural footprint, though. If people are going to have edible parties more than they get together smoking pot, I think. That's going to end up being something that people around our age, even though there's a gap there, that's going to be the thing that you'll find people going off and doing on the weekend or at the cottage, eating a bunch of brownies. It's going to be exciting when you can have that element, because that's bakeries that could open dedicated to that. That's a whole bunch of manufactured
I know
goods.
They have edibles, like if you go to Nevada or to Colorado, California too, I think. You can there's a whole host of marijuana products available in those places, and I think it's all legal, like recreational legal.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there isn't kids dying left, right, and center because of that either.
Yeah, but there's definitely information about edibles that needs to be out there for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. It's such unexplored territory on the legislative side. Like, I haven't seen anything about it yet. They're mostly ignoring it for now and just classifying it as illegal, leaving it alone. Is
Culture Rising going to be around in the next 10 years?
Yeah, definitely.
You're 100% sure?
No, I'm not 100% sure of anything anymore. But we've got our niche, we've got a business model that's focused on art glass, things that can't be mass produced in the same way that, the big corporate chains are going to want. Glass blowers don't make 1,000 of anything.
Sure.
And so we'll always have that going for us, and we'll, continue serving that demographic because it's a creative market, and it's enjoyable, to work with. The artists, there's a lot of talent in Ontario and Canada wide, and there's a lot of talent in the States too, and we're finally getting to the point where we're rivaling them. So it's really exciting to see these glass blowers, step up and, get a worldwide audience more successfully. These kids are having auctions on their own Instagrams every day and, yielding retail price, selling direct. It's awesome for them. And I think nothing's going to stop them because they've got the skills. And, we'll always have that to represent, and other small, not scalable things that they can't corporatize as well.
So culturerising.ca.
That's correct.
That's the website. Do you sell online as well?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And we got facebook.com/NilssonG, Instagram.com. Nilsson looks baked.
Yeah, that's me. We got company presences on both those too.
Cool. Twitter.com/Nilsson tweets. And YouTube.com/user/Nilsson acoustic.
Oh, I don't even use that one.
What about the slam poet, man?
That's dead.
You gonna slam something down right here for us, man?
No.
Come on, man, do it.
No, not today.
No, not today. Okay. You've retired from those activities to focus on business. Hey, man, I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the Get a Grip on Life podcast, man.
Thank you.
Get a Grip Studios, folks. You ever thought about starting a podcast in the back of your head? You ever say, come on, man, I can do it. I can beat that call again. I can beat that Joe Rogan. I can beat that Dan Carlin. I'm better than those guys. Well, then try it out. Give it a run for its money. Come on down to Get a Grip Studios. I just did a podcast with another guy that's coming out named Max Wood. I'm going to talk about him in a second. But he has his own podcast. And we talked a lot about how much work it is to just manage a podcast outside of recording. That's what Get a Grip Studios does for you. That's what Matt does for me over in the producer's office there. He takes care of all of the stuff that goes outside of me sitting here talking to you. And man, it's a lot of work, man. If you do an hour of recording, it's like 3 or 4 hours of work to do it right. Well, maybe even more when you consider getting guests and finding sponsors and all that sort of stuff. So go to getagripstudios.com, baby. That's getagripstudios.com. Hey, Nilsson, thanks for coming on the show, man. Love entrepreneurs. I know we had our disagreements on a few things, son. Come on. I don't like that downtown feel with all them tattoo parlors and marijuana shops all over the place. But you know what? Hey, it is what it is. Those places, a lot of those main streets are struggling. Probably glad to have tenants just in the doors there. So, hey, we disagreed on that. But, hey, we agreed on a ton of other things, man. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. I really like your focus and your attention to the legislation and your passion for the business. I love that. That's what I love about entrepreneurs all the time. And remember, folks, if you're listening to this, hey, write a review, subscribe, say something, spread it to a friend, share it out there, do something for me, man. I love you, especially if you love to hate me. Throw it out there. Appreciate it. And I always thank you for listening. Get a grip on life, baby.